Hello, everyone. Welcome to my den. I am the worst cyber new type, Jared the Greek, here to talk to you about Witch from Mercury, episode 3. We are 3 episodes into this show. That's awesome, because that means that, the story might actually go somewhere. Jokes aside, I did really like this episode, and it is giving me hope that the series will get better, because it actually addressed some of my issues with the series. But we'll save that for the review section. Let's get the synopsis done first. Our episode, of course, begins where the last episode ended, which seems to be a running trend thus far. We have Miorine informing Suletta that she needs to do the duel in order to help Miorine have a sense of freedom and to ensure that Ariel does not get destroyed. Reluctantly, Suletta agrees to this, and we go back to the school to actually have school time. You even have an argument between two characters interrupted by the school bell. You have, of course, gossiping on campus, and you see Suletta helping Miorine with her garden. All these little things that I actually wanted, because if you're going to have the school environment, you better put it to use. And they actually did. It only took them 3 episodes. In addition to that, we then have Suletta being called in front of the dueling committee to be taught kind of how the duels work, which is good that we have that proper information, getting properly registered, how the rules work, the vow of the duelists, things like that. And of course, we conclude our episode with another duel, which is a pretty awesome fight, if I do say so myself, which I do. In terms of our aesthetics, not a lot I can really add to this, other than, upon further reflection, the end theme probably will be on my Gundam Best Songs playlist that I make for myself. And the title song still sucks. In addition to that, we get a brand new unit to discuss. It is the Darl Blade, which is a terrible name for a mobile suit. That being said, its design is pretty cool. It has like giant shoulder wings that definitely give it a lot more mobility and movement, and it's a pretty cool looking suit. It's supposed to be the prototype of the next generation mobile suits produced by the same company that gave us the Delonza. Obviously, it's Yuljaturk's new unit. I generally like this design. Like I said, the Ariel always felt a little bland to me, and it has those weird legs, but other suits do look pretty cool. This one looks pretty decent, and feels like a nice natural upgrade for Yul. That being said, his Delonza is used in 1 episode, and that's pretty sad in my opinion. I was hoping he'd be able to keep that suit for a while, and actually if the way Yul gets upset about having to use a new mobile suit, I think he wanted to keep the same mobile suit as well. As for our characters, we do get some development for Suletta. We end up learning about her little list of things she wanted to do when she got to school, and based on the things she says, you can clearly tell there's that influence of manga and anime and movies and what have you that is referenced in the Cradle Star, which if you have not seen my audiobook version, please check that out. Link is in the description. It was a lot of fun to make, and I hope you enjoy it. Self-promotion aside, I liked seeing this aspect of Suletta. While she's still kind of a boring character, and that cinnamon roll thing just isn't working for me as a protag, the fact that we get a little more depth into what she wants, what she's seeking, what her personal view of what school was supposed to be versus what it actually is, works for me. And hopefully we get a bit more of that in upcoming episodes, because I'd really like to see that have some major payoff. The other character who got much needed character development, Yuljaturk. Thank you! He's slowly becoming one of my favorite characters, assuming what we learn in this episode is true to the character, and he's not playing some sort of mind game with Suletta. Let me explain. In the episode, we do have a little heart-to-heart kind of moment between Suletta and Yul, where she's talking about what her mom's personal belief, if you run, you get 1, but if you move forward, you get 2, and applies that to Yul and how Yul lives, which you can tell moves him to some extent, because he's never really had someone clearly understand his point of view, as his father keeps putting down how Yul is stuck with like honor and following the rules and has to do things his way, when the father has his own more scheming way of dealing with stuff. You even have his brother kind of standing on his father's side rather than on Yul's side. And it doesn't seem like Yul has any friends so much as he has like suck-ups. So Gyul actually having this kind of moment with her allows him to kind of show a moment of weakness, especially when he makes commentary about Suletta having a good mother, and then basically being out of there, more or less implying that not only do we already know that Gyul has a bad dad, but his mom is either dead or just as bad as his dad. And either way, Gyul is just not really happy in his family life and sees someone who does have a better family life. And she kind of reaches him on a level that I did not expect to have happen until way later in the series. In addition to that, you see him argue with his father, to a lesser extent argue with his brother, or at least get annoyed at his brother's constant commentary. And I like that. You're seeing this rebellious nature. While Miorine immediately yells about how, she's angry about her dad and her life situation, Gyul in the first episode just seems like a major jerk. In the second episode, you see him being berated by his father and just taking it. And you think to yourself, oh, he's daddy's little soldier boy. He'll do whatever daddy says. That's why he's a super jerk. And then when you see that actuality, he has this sense of honor, this strong pride. I mean, it's the name of the episode, Gyul's Pride. And that he wants to do things his way, in an honorable, better way, not his father's way, which involves cheating, lying, and scamming. Now, again, like I said, if this is true of his character, it makes him a very interesting character, torn between his responsibilities to the family, to the business, but also his own desires to be a top mech pilot, to live by his own sense of honor, and to keep his pride intact when going into duels or anything else. And that's great. That is depth to a character that I was not expecting to see this early in the series. So hopefully that's true, and Gyul remains this kind of conflicted but very stalwart character. Overall, if it isn't obvious, I loved this episode. Seeing some development for Gyul and making him more than just big man on campus jerk guy was a huge improvement. Seeing a little bit more about Suletta and her desires, also seeing her interact with her mother, who, yes, we now have confirmation, her name is currently Prospera Mercury. So the masked woman is her mother, but is her mother Eri? Or is her mother Elnora? That still is left a little bit on the mystery side, but I'm still standing on she's Elnora. And these are names they had to make up in order to actually function in society, because obviously she would be wanted. And if they go after her, they're probably going to go after her daughter. The duel itself was a pretty good action scene, and the aftermath of the duel caused me to have an emotional reaction. So that was pretty cool. I like where the story is going right now. While it's still a very slow burn, we still don't have a major conflict yet. There's a lot of information we just don't know. It's kind of fine if you can give me the school life, getting to know some of the students, seeing how the school functions, blah, 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 blah. Then you have something really good, and hopefully they can do that. I like the fact that the show is expanding beyond Utena in space, as my first episode was sarcastically titled. Let's just see where things go, and hopefully it's an enjoyable run in episode 4. Whew, all right. All those compliments wore me out. I'm so used to putting things down. It's time for spoilers. So the first thing that we should probably talk about here is the fact that Suletta doesn't seem to show much romantic interest in Miorine in here. She tends to call her best friend. She wants to give her a nickname, things like that. So there's definitely a disconnect in terms of the romance thing. I'm sorry, all you shippers, but that seems to be the case. And even Miorine seems to be very much in the mindset of I'll choose who I'm going to marry. So you win, you be my fake fiance until I get to Earth and live a life, away from my family and away from those responsibilities, and I'll just marry who I fall in love with. I like that. Not only does it give us a little more insight into Miorine and how she views things, but it also shows that the cut and dried, it's clearly going to be this lesbian romance it's not off the table, but it's not the focus. It's teenagers trying to figure out how to be teenagers. I kind of appreciate that, honestly. But this show also does something I hate. It feels like it's building up a shipping war, because we have Elon showing some interest in Suletta. Whether romantic or not is kind of unsure, but he clearly has an interest in her due to her witch abilities. You have the weird Miorine and Suletta thing that they established in episode 1, which again, Miorine has not shown much romantic interest in Suletta, but does seem to still be kind of bisexual because she still seems to be kind of open to whatever. It's hard to say what they're going to do with her. And then Guel freaking proposes at the end of the episode. Yeah, I told you it was spoilers. If you haven't seen the episode yet, that's on you. I know a lot of people are probably thinking a lot of different things off of this, so I'm going to give my theory, which I'm sure will be thrown in the trash as soon as the next episode comes out, but let me give you the theory as to how this kind of is. Either it is because of that heart-to-heart moment, and Guel sees the kind of good, kind person Suletta is, in addition to her fighting skills in the mech, and sees her as the perfect kind of partner that we can both battle side by side. But then you can also have that EQ, emotional quotient, like an IQ, but for your heart, and allow me to like have someone who cares about me genuinely, who has good advice, who has a good family that I can be part of and live a better life. And if it's from that true side like that, where he wants her as beautiful, emotionally supportive warrior wife, and let's face facts, who doesn't want one of those? You know, that'd be great. Obviously, we all know Suletta's not going to be able to mentally handle being proposed to like that, and she's probably just going to freak out. And it's going to be, set aside for the time being, where Guel will probably say something like, well, if you ever feel ready to be married, my proposal is always available. I'm sure he'll say something like that, and we'll kind of have everyone at the school and whatever going like, oh my God, everyone loves Suletta, and having some sort of weird CW garbage go on. As I said in my character section, if what we learned about Guel is correct, then that's fine. What if what we learned was fake? What if Guel is actually a manipulative, evil person, more so than what we saw in episode 1, where he's just being a kind of a jerk who's bossing people around? But what if he's legitimately an evil person? Picture this, if you will. Guel looks at Suletta and her advanced mobile suit and says, her company has invented something that surpasses what my family's company is capable of wielding. If I fail this fight, we need that technology, because that will make our company that much stronger. Imagine that Gundam being part of our arsenal, that technology being put into the next generation of mobile suits. He's coming from that perspective. I'm going to marry you to basically take your company and add it into my company. And then we will have the most powerful company. And this has nothing to do with any kind of relationship, connection, or honoring her as a warrior, and instead goes towards power and money and having the best mobile suits available. Now, granted, if the drone system works because Suletta's a witch, then I don't think Guel's ever going to be able to use the drone system unless they make them automated or something along those lines. But what we do know is that there's that possibility that Guel's like, get me my own red Ariel so I can go assassinate my dad, take over the company, and have all the technology, all the money, all the power. I'm not saying that's the case, because we don't really know if Guel, one episode of character development doesn't necessarily mean it's true. This could literally be a whole act. The fact that he's arguing with his dad and stuff might just be part of that overarching plan, that this is a greater plan. I need my dad to think of me as the insubordinate son. I need to get him to call me into his office when I can get close to him, assassinate him, and take his place, kind of a thing. I'm not saying that that's the case. I'm saying that's a possibility. Whichever one it is, I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out, even though I know it's going to be more CW garbage. And I am really worried about that, because I don't want shipping wars, CW, I like the girl who doesn't like me, drama. I don't want that crap in my Gundam. I hated those moments in Iron-Blooded Orphans when you got the weird love triangle thing there with Mikazuki and the two ladies. And I'm glad they resolved it in a way that, like, works, depending on your point of view. But the shipping war aspect of things like that really irritated me. And that's not even the only Gundam that's done stuff like that, but man, it just keeps popping up, and I absolutely hate it. So let's talk about something that could potentially affect the future of the series. Guel's new mobile suit, the Darl Balade, I hate that name. Could you just call it the Re-Delonza or something? The Darl Balade? Regardless, has an AI decision-making unit inside it. So Guel can't fight to his full capacity because half the time the mobile suit is making its own decisions to fight for him. This sounds familiar to me for some reason. Could it possibly be a mobile doll? I think we're seeing the beginnings of a mobile doll type system for this series. And there have been other series that have had the AI drone type units. Whether it's the GX bits from Gundam X, the mobile dolls from Wing, these kinds of drone units do exist especially in alternate timelines. And I love the idea of bringing those in, because what we could end up seeing is, instead of the students themselves factioning off into different groups that are battling each other, what if you made mobile dolls? And what if those mobile dolls decided to just go full Terminator on everybody? And now all these people who would be arguing or being different points of view at a school have to team up together now to fight these mobile doll units. Even prior to this episode, I had the weird thought, what if the ELS just showed up in the next episode? Now, not the ELS from Gundam 00 the movie exactly, but an ELS type threat. And I'm not going to spoil what those are for people who haven't seen Gundam 00 the movie, but let's just say another more alien faction shows up, and then the kids are forced to work together to fight this new threat that is a threat to humanity as a whole, instead of just having faction versus faction, planet versus space colony, that kind of stuff. It would be pretty cool. And my brother and I have done multiple discussions on, could such and such timeline survive the ELS invasion? And might do a video about that someday. I think that would actually be an interesting one to do. If you're interested in knowing about my brother and I's thoughts on different timelines surviving the ELS, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll do that in the future. That being said, the idea of a mobile doll type unit would be really interesting. And while the aerial is a little overpowered, especially for the early part of the series, if you have to see Suletta go up against tens, hundreds of mobile dolls, suddenly the aerial isn't looking that useful. She could easily get overwhelmed by just being surrounded by too many units. In this episode, that AI system was very effective against battling Suletta. If she had to take on more than one, she might be at a major disadvantage. And that would balance out the power level problem that we're facing. Otherwise, what we have right now is an overpowered protagonist. I do want to point out that a lot of units for protagonists are overpowered from the get-go. The ARC-78 was cutting through Zaku's like they were a joke. The Strike was cutting through Jin's like a joke. The Gundam X in episode 2, I believe, melts an entire squad of enemies in one shot. The Tournay is a whole mess of things, but one of those is way overpowered. The Exia and other Gundams at the beginning of 00 were just shredding through enemy forces like they were nothing. So an overpowered starter suit isn't entirely out of the question. The problem really feels is that she's kind of at like celestial being level, while everyone else is kind of down at like standard Earth level at the beginning of 00, but she doesn't have the same overall objective or the enemy numbers that the Gundam Meisters faced, which just makes her power gap feel way larger than it probably is. And I think this episode shows that the newer model suits can hold their own against this Gundam unit. And had this been a real battle, had they actually been able to actually produce real damage on each other, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened, especially when Guel took control of the unit and fought his style instead of fighting AI style. And that's about all I got to say about this episode. So let me know what you think about this episode in the comments. Next time, we're going to be looking at episode 4. Until then, I'll see you at the tavern.